thanks to you both for allowing me this opportunity to talk and discuss with you on your awesome Loan Talks channel. But also, I wanted to say thanks because, as you know, there's not a lot of people around the world that are thinking about age or longevity or really what is a demographic issue or crisis. So congratulations. I'm glad that someone is looking at this in Brazil. It's fantastic.
You introduced the concept of age debit. What does it mean? And why is it still not treated as a strategic priority?
Yeah, that's a really, really big question, but I'll try to be succinct. Age debt, essentially, Jessica, is an organization or its leaders' blindness to what you two have been working on for the last 4 or 5 years. And that is, organizations and leaders are very blind to kind of 4 things, I would say, 4 things in particular. First is what I call the demographic tidal wave. So demographic disruption, demographic apocalypse, demographic change, call it what you will. But leaders seem to not realize that like age is becoming or will become the number one, business or organizational issue. The birth rate has plummeted. And so this has happened since the 1960s and 70s. And just eventually we will sort of, not only run out of young people, but because of advances in healthcare and technology and how we take care of our bodies and our minds, we're living longer, which is great news. But, we're all of that means we're not paying attention, however, to demography. And so that's number one. Number two is we seem to be running a concept called short-termism. And when you have short-term thinking in organization, you're only thinking about revenue and profits, particularly for for-profit companies. Now, even in not-for-profit or public sector organizations, they seem to always, they gravitate to let's fire or terminate our most expensive and our most experienced people so that we could lower our budgets or lower our costs. And I call that an experience conundrum, meaning we keep having this short-termism or short-sightedness of looking about our organizations. And then when we start terminating 50, 55, 60-year-old people, and then we wonder, well, how did we used to do all this stuff? How did we used to sell or process improvement or whatever? It doesn't matter. That is a second age debt blindness, is just the whole experience piece. Number 3 is about longevity itself. And so what an organization is not doing is helping the team members, the people, the employees realize that, if you're young, you'll probably live over the age of 100. If you're middle age, you're probably dealing with aging parents and children. I mean, it's not that people aren't having children, they're just not having as many, but still children. So this middle generation, this sandwich generation that we call them, they are stressed. And then you have obviously the older worker, and the older worker has not saved enough money for retirement. And so as they approach 65 or 70, and then they live to 80 or 90, maybe 100, they don't have enough money. And it's not like the government's going to help them. So this whole pressure point of longevity is the third age debt issue. And then the fourth has been around forever, and it's still there, and it's terrible. And it happens at all ages, but it's ageism. And so, we might not hire the young person because we think artificial intelligence will take their job. We might not promote the middle-aged worker because they're like, you know what, we're going to fire them anyway, or they're going to leave. We might not hire the older worker because we think that they might be too expensive. So whether it is an older worker, middle-aged worker, or younger worker, which I call rivers, rocks, and rubies, by the way. So any of those three, we have ageism that sits still in plain sight in our organization. So quick summary then: age debt. The organization and the leaders are blind to four key factors. One is demographics, two is experience, three is longevity, and four is ageism. That's the big idea.
Is very interesting, and I like very much when I read about your analogy. Is rivers, rockers, and rubies is very interesting. The traditional career model is becoming obsolete, and what needs the change as people live longer lives?
There's two things that have to happen, right? And so there is the organization and its leaders that need to change the culture, the mindset of the organization itself. How does it hire? How does it promote? How does it develop experience? How does it, well, I'll come back to a couple other bits. So like that, there's the organization lens, like what is the culture of the organization? But then there's the individual. And so there are lots of books, lots of people talking about longevity, the 100-year life, and that's all important. So I'm not suggesting that the individual doesn't have a responsibility to play as well. So my suggestion, at least in the book, is we need to rethink a bunch of things. So both on the individual level and on the organizational level. I think my point out of this is that A, we've got to get rid of generations in the workplace, but B, our careers, our exchanging of wisdom and intelligence, our intergenerational collaboration needs to be thinking this way, in a way that is almost age neutral, if not age inclusive, and that a young river would be well suited to be paired up with a ruby to learn and catch some things in an apprenticeship way. A ruby could hang out with a rock to be their conciliary or their Sherpa or their kind of coach or mentor guide. A ruby could be running an organization or not. And it's just, to me, when I've looked at organizations that have thought to be more age positive, they're looking at it in a way that is the 18-year-old to the 88-year-old in this sort of 70-year span, and doing whatever they can to help careers be different, culture be different, and much more positive.
And how can organizations turn the experience of older professionals into a competitive advantage? What do you think about it then?
Well, effectively, what I've found is that there are some positive movements, and then there's sort of I'm a recovering chief learning officer, right? So my my job has always been, how do you develop the culture? How do you develop leaders? How do you make sure that leaders are treating the bottom line with respect, but doing it through employees that they also respect? And I think I sort of make this point in the book that I wish when I was a chief learning officer, I wish I had paid attention to age. And I didn't. And I think that's part of the point, is that I am kind of like in a mea culpa. I'm sorry. I wish I had a thought about this when I was a chief learning officer. I really only began to start thinking about age in the workplace when do you know what a speaker bureau is? Like a keynote speaker. So I'm with a bunch of bureaus. They send me out to conferences. But one of the bureaus in 2021 said, "We're taking you off our list. Like, goodbye." And I was like, "Why?" Like, it made no sense to me. And basically, it was because they said they had to refresh the roster, which is kind of code for you're too old. We got to get rid of you. Like, we need more younger people on our keynote speaker roster. And I was like, huh. So I just got fired essentially for being older, not old. I wasn't 105. I was 51. So I was like, huh. So I started to dig a little bit more into age in the workplace and wonder, why didn't I ever actually address, like, why didn't I think about it? I just literally never thought about it. So this book is a little bit of a, well, how do I fix my mistake? How do I help other leaders who might not be thinking about age? And so really, to your point, the three major opportunities, I would say, what I call experience dividends. So you can go from age debt, which is the four items I talked about, right? Between demographics, ageism, longevity, and experience. But over on the plus side, the opportunity, the good side. So I call that the experience dividend. A dividend, like when you invest, you get dividends. So the three things are the career canvas, the wisdom wheel, and what I call the longevity lens. So quickly, the career canvas is basically saying, let's stop thinking about a career ladder where everything goes up. And now you kind of think of a canvas, like a painter. You have all of these paints, all of these brushes, all of these colors. Whether you're a river, rock, or ruby, how do we help you build a portfolio where you might have a short-term gig? Maybe you're on a project for a while. Maybe you go to a different part of an organization. Maybe you leave that organization and come back as a what I call boomerang. So whatever it is, a career canvas is actually both specifically and metaphorically thinking about people's careers as a canvas, getting to paint. And it's flat. I mean, you can go up, you can go across, you can go down, whatever the case may be. But HR, senior leaders, they really only think about going up the ladder. And paychecks, your remuneration, it's all tied to your leveling up. And I just think that's wrong in this day and age where we're going to have less young people and more middle-aged and older rocks and rubies. So that's number one. Number two, the wisdom wheel. That is actually taking a spin on, well, what's our age-inclusive culture? How do we have intergenerational wisdom sharing and collaboration? How do we make sure that people's sense of purpose allows them to contribute their wisdom at river, rock, and ruby levels? So, what I find, again, is that in the organizations of today, young rivers look up to rubies and say, oh, they're over the hill, they're old. Or older workers, the rubies, look down and say the rivers are too fast, too crazy. They're always on their phones or whatever. So they have all these memes and tropes that are terrible. But what we're trying to eviscerate are the traditional age practices. So the wisdom wheel basically says, how do we connect intergenerationally all of our people so we can start contributing, sharing, transferring, cooperating, all those things about wisdom in essence. And then the third one, longevity lens, that is for both the individual leader and the organization to sort of take a crack at the work-life continuum and to say, so how can we become anti-ageists so we don't have ageism happening anymore? Because our organizations are going to look older because people are going to live longer and they're going to work longer. So you're going to see more wrinkles in the organization. How do we not have ageism happening in the orgs just by way of people looking? So how do you have an age-ready culture? How do you get people financially ready to live 100 years? How do you get people talking about age in a way that isn't over there in the corner quietly with no one wanting to talk about it, no one wanting to share their age number, and so on. So this whole notion of river, rock, and ruby, I think what you've got for longevity lens is like everyone, like you can't stop aging. So why can't our organizations then be more age positive? That's the longevity lens.
In Canada, it's the same ageism with another countries.
Yeah, sadly. I mean, and possibly worse. So the average age of Canada is higher than the United States. The birth rate in Canada is lower than the United States. So the birth rate in Canada right now, which is shocking, is 1.26. Where I live in British Columbia, the birth rate is 1.0, which is Japan's birth rate. So Canada is trying to plug the hole from an immigration perspective, but they've lowered the immigration levels as well. So even when they bring in immigrants, they're not bringing in babies. they're bringing in middle-aged or younger workers who are 20, 25, 30, and they're not having babies. So you're just sort of delaying the age issue. And so what you're seeing is that the average age is increasing in Canada, in the US, and the G7. But no one's talking about age, and so you have ageism practices. I'm sure you see this too in Brazil, that finally, like, the journalists and mainstream media are starting to talk about this birth rate issue, this demographic issue. So that, I mean, that's good that it's starting to get talked about, but that doesn't mean the organizations are preparing yet for it. And that's full circle to my point. There's a lot of work to be done if they want the bottom line of these organizations, whether that is for profit, not for profit, or government or public sector, to continue. And I think this is the day of reckoning. It's happening.
If you could leave one message for leaders navigating this longevity transition, what would it be?
Open your eyes. Yeah, open your eyes.
Good advice.
No, I mean, kind of serious, right? Because the data does not lie. Now, when you open your eyes, you'll see that there's opportunity. So I just said, in Japan, adult diapers outsell baby diapers. Well, before, baby diapers outsold adult diapers. So there is an opportunity. So actually, halfway through the book, there's a little secret here. So I renamed the book from The Future of Work is Gray to The Future of Work is Gold. And that's why the color of the book is gold. And because in the second half of the book, I want people to know that it's not doom and gloom. If you employ the experience dividend, if you think about age as a positive, if a leader thinks about a career canvas, not a career ladder, if it thinks about how to build a wisdom wheel, not to hoard wisdom or to keep people apart, all these little micro, ideas can lead to a very positive age inclusive future of work is gold opportunity. So I do believe that there's gold in the gray. I think there's gold in the certain issues we're having right now, but it's only when they open their eyes like this big, like as big as they can, to this opportunity. Otherwise, it's just going to be a big problem.
Thank you so much, Dan.
Thank you so much. I like very much to learning and about to speak.
Thank you so much. I so look forward to it. And thank you for taking such an interest in this book.